Another point is the inconsistency and the regulatory patchwork of UCITS, MiFID, IMD, and I would add IORP for the pensions, in terms of sales of conduct practices. And such an inconsistency should call for an homogeneous disclosure requirements in tandem with uniform rules of the conduct of business. We'll talk about PRIPS directive. And about specifically PRIPS. PRIPS should cover all, quote, substitutable investment products and not only packaged products. Lastly, there are developments on corporate governance and on shareholders' rights. So this is for me the first key issue. When I read all these outstanding issues that were raised early 2010, there are still outstanding issues in the end of 2012. And I would retain only two important things, but there were a lot in my list. The first one is independent and competent advice. In MiFID II, Michael Petitjean referred to the vote of the Econ Committee. This is, for us, a bit disappointing piece of not only needs to be finalized yet, but of potential regulation. First, in terms of constraint, there is no much progress compared to MiFID I, but more importantly, it targets only the so-called, I mean, I'm summarizing, but I'm referring to this Article 24 of MiFID II proposal. It targets only so-called independent advisors. Whereas the reality in continental Europe is that such people are a tiny fragment of the market, of the retail distribution market. By far the biggest distributors of retail investment products in continental Europe are banks. Also insurance companies, insurance brokers, agents, etc. So this is, we have a French saying, this is a sword strike in water. First, it targets only, let's say, 10% of the market. Second, in fact, it will likely target 0%, as when I talk to so-called independent advisors, I say, okay, I will erase the word independent and business will continue as before, because why would this guy, forego their commissions, whereas the major leaders of the market will not. So I think there is a major problem there. Also, there is another major problem with long-term investments, savings, and pension savings. In 2007, there was a green paper from the European Commission, the green paper on retail financial services, and they rightly identified at that time, you can read that if you like, that the key priority was really to have very clear and not misleading information and very good sales practices for long-term retirement savings, pension investment products, because these are once-in-a-lifetime decisions. The products are often complex, and it has a lot of impact on the well-being of EU citizens. And I'm just quoting the European Commission. When I look at the end of 2012, both on the product information regulation and on the conduct of business rules, what I see, and this I agree with Tillman, that investment funds are quite well regulated right now. On the product information side, I salute all the work that has been done on the KID, and I think, of course, from the retail investor perspective, it's not perfect, but it is a huge improvement, because we will now have a two-pager with a single format, hopefully with plain English. I'll come back to that. And in fact, Tilman alluded also to, for example, the use of some index things and things like that, which are not always plain English. But so it's a huge improvement. And on the conduct of business rules, you already had MiFID I. MiFID II, as I said, I don't think is a real improvement, but at least MiFID I is there, and key provisions of MiFID I on clear and not misleading information and on the prevention of conflicts of interest, although not perfect, should still be there. But if you go down the stream of products used by the people, by you and I, for your retirement, it's getting worse. You alluded to life insurance products. Hopefully, all life insurance products with an investment feature will be in the scope of PRIPS. At least that's my reading of the European Commission proposal. But the devil is in the detail and in the lobbying and the Parliament right now. Unfortunately, most unfortunately, shares and bonds are excluded. For product information, you have to refer to the prospectus directive, where the summary information, I have no words to qualify it. It can be up to 9 pages. It's legal verbiage. Often the key information is not there. I provided several times to the Commission evidence on a straight fixed interest bond sold to retail investors, actually to me, for example. The rate is not there in the summary information. There are a lot of information, quite understandable, incomprehensible, but the rate is not there, for example. So this is, I think, a very serious weakness of the PRIPS proposal. And occupational pension funds are not there as well. And IORP review apparently is not focused on either on simplified, standardized, plain English product information or on sales of conduct of business rules at the point of sale. So these are still, I think, two key issues that are not yet solved by regulation, although it could be solved. I'm always optimistic in the PRIPS negotiation, at least for the long-term investments. For inducements, I think it's a bit too late. But the other key issue, and I will finish with this, is enforcement. Again, there's been an impressive work on regulation. There has been a lot of progress. Again, I concentrate on the other side of the coin, but again, I stress that there's been a lot of progress. On regulatory work, yes. On enforcement, no. And I'd like to give 2 or 3 examples. The first one is especially on MiFID I, fair, exact, and not misleading information rules and inducements rules. They are not enforced. For example, recently the French regulator published the results of a consultation it made with financial intermediaries. From those who responded, 2/3 say they are not implementing the inducements provision of MiFID I. We are 5 years after the start of the implementation of MiFID I. So you wonder what the national regulators are doing on this. So if it was implemented, I think you would have a much reduced problem of inducements and biased advice. Second example on kids, UCITS for the kids. We have looked at recent kids because they are now mandatory since last year. And we looked precisely, and we provided evidence to the Commission in the consultation on indices and benchmarks, which was recently closed, I think, last week. We realized that we took several funds, index funds. The index benchmark in the past performance was wrong. The figures were wrong, or missing. So I think there also enforcement is key. You know, they have to check that these documents are accurate. Last example, I stop there because maybe I'm too long. Michael is becoming nervous. MAD, MAR, market abuse. Of course, that was one of the big highlights of the financial crisis. There again, a lot of work on regulation, and I think there have been progress with the recent MAD, MAR. But when I compare the US to Europe, how many financial offenders have been going to jail? Europe versus the United States. I mean, I just read the press. I don't have precise figures. I have no example in Europe. I have quite a few examples, and you know them, in the US. And this is, of course, the problem is increased by what I was saying before, is that at European level and in the major member states, there is no possibility practically of private enforcement because contrary to the US, it's impossible in most EU countries for private investors to have class actions. Thank you.